Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So some interesting news broke out, and of course it had to break out while I was away on vacation. But I was able to follow along with a lot of the other fellow YouTubers that were talking about it, some of the discussions on Twitter, on Facebook, and of course I'm talking about, well, not exactly this, but the Atari 2600 Plus. Yeah, I mean, first of all, the name, I don't get it. Plus, okay, is it plus because it's plus runs 7,800 games? I think they could have done a little bit better. But, okay, I'm not going to go on about the name. The name is regardless. The point is that something is coming out that is obviously appealing to a lot of the retro gamers who played the original Atari and, possibly some new players. Now, from what I was reading from a lot of the comments, people had the pretty standard comments about it. The one I think I saw quite often was, what about the Atari 5200? There's all these different, there's the Jaguar, there's the Atari computers, there's all these different kinds of systems. Why just the 2600 and the 7800? Now, my first thought when I read about this thing, at first when I saw it, I thought it was actually going to be this, a hardware version that's pretty much the same idea, the same kind of concept, complete, almost like a copy of it, just modernized a little bit with the HDMI in the back instead of this, the RCA and all that input crap. Where you need the silly little switch box, and that's what I thought it was. And I think a lot of people were thinking the same thing. Like, this is what it is. Like, it's just it's a brand new Atari, and I think that's what everybody kind of wants. But it ended up actually, they came out saying that no, it's an emulation device. Essentially, what that means is you put the cartridge in the slot. It takes the ROM, the information from the cartridge, and it loads it into the into the memory, and then you play it that way through emulation. You're not actually playing off the physical cartridge, which unfortunately means people who have that Harmony cartridge with multiple games on it, it won't work. It just won't read the cartridge. At least that's what everybody's saying anyways. From what I've read a bunch of the forums and all that stuff, and of course, I think though the more common complaint is, what about the other systems? Now, there is something to be said about the 7800. Now, this is something that I always thought with, the system that kind of came out first that's doing this is the Retron 77, which plays the Atari 2600 cartridges, and it apparently it plays 7800 ROMs if you could load it into the system, but it doesn't take the cartridge. It's a different cartridge slot. And that was always the thing. Like I don't know if you could see that, but those two little notches there, it's an extra board. It requires a completely different cartridge slot than the original 2600. And I always thought that the Retron 77 should have had that cartridge slot. So this is what they did right about this Atari 2600 Plus unit that's coming out. Why Plus? I don't know. I don't get the name. Is it because it's Plus, as in you get the extra 7800 compatibility? But again, it's dumping the ROM and playing it through emulation. And I think what we all kind of want is more of this. We want this, the real thing. And actually just recently, there was a big kerfuffle online, if you want to call it that, about, talk of an Intellivision system coming out that was going to be able to play, or maybe not an Intellivision. I think it was misspoken that it was going to be an Intellivision, but a retro system that would be able to play in television games and all the other stuff, and it would be actual hardware. A lot has changed with that story, but that's kind of what we were hoping for when we saw something like this. Was the way it looks. It actually looks like, kind of looks like this. This is a six switch, light sixer, I guess you call it. This new Atari Plus thing is 4 switch, modeled after the 4-switch. From what I read, it's about 85% smaller than the original, so it's probably going to be lighter too. I mean, this got some weight to it. I'm holding this; it's starting to hurt my hand, just holding it. It's got weight. A lot of it's obviously in the back side of it, where all the electronic parts are. You got speakers or whatever here, but it's well, not speaker. What is in there? It's hollow there. A lot of it's hollow. There's some circuit boards. But yeah, it's got some weight in the back versus those emulation devices, which, kind of like I had it here, but, these flashback devices. Where did I put that? I guess I put it over there after I changed my man cave, of course. Yeah, everything's all over the place. But yeah, I mean, so anyways, getting back to what I was talking about, the only thing I think that they did right that's appealing is making these things fit. Now, the other thing that I've been hearing a lot of is the homebrew. Now, homebrew is becoming, more popular amongst a lot of the retro players. Now, let's be honest here. Like, who is going to be buying this Atari 2600 Plus? Like, people who are going to buy it are going to be people like me, or people like, people who like the original, who probably already have one of these. Maybe you don't have the 7800. It's not as popular. A lot of people don't have it. It's a little bit harder to get your hands on. Maybe it's a little bit more expensive. Like, I paid quite a bit of money for mine. I have one, and the problem with it is that it does have that proprietary power supply thing in the back, and if you have problems, it's probably a little bit more difficult to fix than this guy. So the idea that having something like this that could play my original 7800 games, now that is appealing. But the other thing that pops up is this. Well, this is the original 7800 controller. North American one, of course. The European one looks like a gamepad. I don't have that one, but so this is the original. And the difference is it's got the 2 buttons, and both of them are different. It's not just the same fire button, right? So what happens now when you buy this new Plus Atari 2600 Plus system, that currently, from what I've read and saw, it's coming with something like this, the original controller style, and it's got the paddle controllers that you can buy separately, which I know a lot of people are excited about that, because, the old paddle controllers, they get jittery, and you got to take them apart, and you got to clean them. So having a brand new set of paddle controllers is definitely going to be appealing. But for the 7800 compatibility part, what is going to happen? I've heard of people trying to find adapters that you could, like, maybe plug in a Super Nintendo controller or something like that has the extra buttons. Maybe a Sega controller. I don't know. I'm curious on how that's going to work, because I know the buttons have to be mapped properly for it to work. You can't just plug in a Sega controller into the 7800 and have it work properly. So that is where I'm kind of wondering myself. And I was kind of curious, and when I saw it, I was like, I might want to consider it. Of course, they're saying it doesn't ship to Canada right now. That's where I am, in Canada. But when I was looking on Twitter, they were responding to that, saying there's going to be some international shipping coming soon. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going, do I really need that? I mean, I do have it. I have this 2600. I have another Light 6er. I have an Atari Junior. I have my 7800 Pro system, which plays the Atari 2600. To me, I'm not really sure the appeal of having it, other than just for the sake of having it. And I've kind of talked about this before, like getting sold on something like this just because you want to have another thing that has this little logo in the corner. Are people really going to use it? Of course, there is this tiny appeal of it being able to plug into an HDMI TV. But in most cases, when I play my Atari, I got it hooked up to a TV over there, which is a CRT, an old CRT. And I get the proper aspect ratio. When you go plugging these things into an HD TV with the big wide screen, the picture could look weird. And I know people were asking that question too. Is there going to be a way to change the scale or, the aspect ratio of it? Or is it going to stretch across the screen? How is it going to look? Especially if you're talking emulation here. So there's a lot of interesting questions circulating, circulating around about this Atari 2600 Plus. But I like the direction they're going in. I like that they did the 7800 compatibility. I think that was a brilliant move. And of course, a lot of people, like I said, are questioning where's the 5200, because that's a system that's kind of always been left in the dark. It's kind of how, you know, the controllers are always sketchy. It's the main reason why I chose not to buy a 5200 and just jump right into getting an Atari 400 computer, because of the controllers and, you know, all the other stuff. But anyways, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they're going to go, because, you know, the big question is why? Why? And I'm thinking maybe because they're selling games. They're selling brand new games, and people were asking, you know, okay, so you could buy these brand new games, but what if you don't have the system? Now you got to go hunting for an old system just to play these old, you know, these new games. And so it also makes sense that they're making something like this as well. So I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents on it. I know a lot of people are already talking about this thing. It's old news by now, but we're going to see where this project goes, where this, you know, honestly, I think the people who are going to buy it already have Atari. They already have this, and I doubt new players or people who are just wanting nostalgia, they get the flashbacks, right? They get the pre-built-in games and all that stuff. So I'm curious to see where it's going to go. And probably if the sales are great, they're probably going to maybe move on to something like the 5200 or the Jaguar or whatever. We'll see where that goes too. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.